At three, this is another place where I'm sort of departing from conventional wisdom. I've got the Lions. And the reason for that is simple.
Me too.
You've got a team that was 6-0 in their division last year, not get a whole lot worse. Now I know people are saying, "What about the coordinators? What about the coordinators? What about the coordinators?" Yeah, sure, you lost some coordinators, but you still have by players, maybe the best offense in football, certainly up there. Probably not the best, but definitely top five. You've got so many players on defense coming back. I think this Lions team, I don't expect them to win 15 games last year, but they dominated the division. And if you dominate your division, if you go 6-0 in the division, you are probably winning the division. Even if they don't go 6-0, right? They won this division. The Vikings had a great season and almost beat them in the division, but I expect the Vikings, we're not winning 14 games next year. That's not happening.
No, that won't.
You know that's not happening. Then they were 4 games away from the Packers, right? If you expect the Vikings to take a step back, even if the Packers play as well as they did last year, or maybe even a little bit better, the Lions would have to be 3 games worse in order to have the division in question. I know it's very popular to hate on the Lions right now, to say, look, they're in danger. They lost these coordinators. Dan Campbell's overrated. This has if you consider both sides of the ball, maybe the most talented roster in the NFL. They've got so many players coming back from injury. I'm not betting against them.
Yeah, here's the thing with Detroit, and there's a reason we both have them at 3. Like, I know it sounded like when you're talking like I'm not betting against them, like they would be much lower on this list. But at the end of the day, there are a lot of key losses to this team. Like, we're sitting around talking about Detroit as if they're, an unbeatable force a lot of last season. And we watched all the guys get hurt and they were still great. And I think that's lingering into the season, as it should, right? They're a very good football team. But losing these pieces on the offensive line, like that was the identity of the team, is the offensive line, the toughness here. And I don't expect them to fall off the face of the earth, but the floor to me is lower than I think they're probably a 10 or 11 win team this season, which is still a very good team. But that schedule is brutal on the road. And Jared Goff is going to, now again, with Jared Goff, just like I said with Baker Mayfield, he should be very good this year. We all expect him to. But at times he felt unstoppable last year. And that's sort of what led to Detroit being an unstoppable team, was Jared Goff was just wildly efficient. Every time he dropped back to pass, it felt like a completion was coming. And I just want to see it another year here with Frank Ragnow gone, with Kevin Ziegler gone. Like, there are a couple key pieces up front missing. If he has a little bit less time, is Jared Goff going to be as dominant as he was last season, where he's a top 5 MVP candidate? I expect them to be very good, but Detroit steps down a tier, not the tier, but Detroit steps down a little bit from that unbeatable phase if he's not great himself. And we saw it in the playoff game, right? He was the reason they lost that playoff game, along with the defense. The defense was horrible.
And Jared Goff has a stinker or two every year, and the Lions were lucky to win his stinkers in the regular season. But you know what you're getting. And as much as people talk about the Lions' difficult schedule, and it is difficult, I get there's the home road splits, but the Bears, Packers, and Vikings have very difficult schedules too. They're playing most of the same teams.
The other thing as well,
so it's hard for me to sit back and say that, well, the Lions have such a hard schedule. Everyone else does too.
They do. A couple of those, first place games they have make it tougher. But the other thing about Detroit is, if you're better than teams, you're better than them. You know what I mean? Like, it could be a really tough schedule, but if Detroit's the best team in football next year, it's those other teams that are worried about you, as opposed, like, you are the hunter. And last year, Detroit was. They were going in and beating people up basically everywhere they went until the whole team was injured. Now, as far as a competition standpoint goes with the Lions, I reached out to our good buddy Tom Monroe, diehard Lions fan, a good friend of the show, and I asked him, okay, like who's the scariest team to you right now? And I'm curious if the Lions Nation, or the Lions fans who listen to this show, would agree. He actually said it was the Vikings. He said he feels that Jordan Love, were assessing him on those 9-10 games and talking about that as if that's the Jordan Love, like that's his natural form, as opposed to that being his peak. And with the Vikings, he's saying if JJ McCarthy figures it out, that roster is scarier to him than Green Bay. Now, let me know what you think, Lions fans. I disagree with that. I think if I were a Detroit fan, it has to be Green Bay to me, because I think that Jordan Love being really good again is probably more likely than JJ McCarthy being really good. And as everyone knows, quarterback's the most important position. This Green Bay team, when they're on, feels like they can beat anyone. And Detroit has simply had the Vikings number. Like, I hate this as a Viking fan, but every time we play them, it feels like something's going to go wrong at some point. And we can't beat them. It's insane. We can't beat the Lions. But that's where we are. I feel like it has to be Green Bay, even if our Lions guy is picking the Vikings.
I will say this. I checked. The odds for the NFC North have actually moved pretty substantially since they've opened. The Packers and the Vikings are basically tied. Unnamed sportsbook has the Packers at 270 and the Vikings at 290. So, but Tom Monroe may not be as far off as someone like me is inclined to think.
Do you remember where they started?
They started down with the Bears at like 500.
So the Vikings are moving up.
And they're moving up substantially.
Well, you know what it is? We have all these media guys coming out and saying, like, you got to buy Minnesota. And me and you are sitting here as Vikings fans saying, like, let's slow this thing down. Like, we don't need to have sky-high expectations.
That's what it is.
I
think people took a look and said the biggest complaint about JJ McCarthy is a game manager who needs a great team around him. He needs great weapons. He needs a good offensive line. He needs good running backs. And then they realized, wait a second, that's the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah, and then the media is talking about it and saying that this team's like, I don't want the sky high expectations. I feel like it was nice kind of flying under the radar, and in the back of our heads, we knew as Vikings fans, yeah, if he looks good, this team should be pretty dangerous. But now, as we're moving through the offseason, it's starting to feel a bit more like, okay, like we got to get something going early this year. And it's going to be hard. Like, it's tough when you have a rookie quarterback. You can't just, and I'm calling him a rookie, but you can't just throw in these expectations to be great immediately. I think Jaden Daniels and CJ Stroud have sort of, they've sort of now misrepresented what most rookies look like, first year starters look like. And, JJ's got a pretty tall task in front of him. But I would say you would say the Green Bay too, though, right?
I think it's a toss-up.
Really? What is happening?
I think both of those teams are teams with very good rosters and a high amount of quarterback variance. I think the Packers, there's less quarterback variance, but Minnesota has the better roster. So I think it's close.
It's definitely close. And also you can't totally leave out Chicago in most of these division vulnerability rankings.
But I want to so bad.
You should. We probably can. Like, do I think the Bears are going to win the division? No. But when we look at these other teams in the AFC East, like the Jets, no shot. In the AFC West, the Raiders, really no shot. I know people like Geno, but come on. The Saints, no shot. The Titans, I don't think so. Like, the Bears are by far the best fourth place team in any division.
They're the second best. I think whoever you pick between the Seahawks and the Cardinals is the best when it comes to winning their division.
Yeah, that's fair.
The Bears just have so much working against them momentum-wise, whereas the Cardinals and the Seahawks, the Cardinals won 8 games. The Seahawks won 10 and tied the Rams. They lost on a tiebreaker. Like, those were not bad teams last year. The Bears were a bad team last year.
They were, but the ceiling's higher for Chicago than it is for the Seahawks or the Cardinals to me.
Sure.
And that's where
I don't think they're going to get there this year.
Probably not. I think they're a 2026 team to keep an eye on. And you want to see year one, Caleb taking jumps with Ben Johnson, cleaning up mistakes. Definitely the sacks. 68 sacks last year. That needs to come down. But the one thing that the Lions, well, again, now I sort of just comparing across the division, like the Packers just lack that game-breaking dude, I think, on both sides of the ball. Josh Jacobs is awesome. He's a very, very good running back. But they don't have Xavier McKinney, also really good, but they don't have the pass rusher who could take over a series. They don't have
they do.
Two.
Edgerrin Cooper.
Oh, well.
You're gonna find out next year, Paul. You are going.
I know. I think I was on Edgerrin Cooper before anyone on this show. I was the Edgerrin Cooper guy. I mean, you're taking that title from me here. But I mean, as far as defensive ends go here, I don't think you have. Sure, if you want to put Edgerrin Cooper off the edge, I'll give you that. Offensively, though, you're relying on a bunch of guys. The same thing as last year. It's the same situation. You're relying on a bunch of guys, hopefully all taking a little step forward, and Matthew Golden being really good. While I think
that does make it a little different than last year.
They do have someone, yes,
first round pick coming in.
Yes, they do, but they also don't have Christian Watson for most of the year. So we'll see what happens there. The Vikings and Lions, though, they have those guys like Justin Jefferson. You really, whenever you look at stats, it sort of puts into perspective how great Justin Jefferson is. Like he's going to be, assuming he stays healthy, hopefully he stays healthy, like he's going to blow away the record for most receiving yards through 6 seasons. It's a per game basis. Like he's
Justin
unreal.
Jefferson he had 1,500 yards and 10 touchdowns last year, and nobody cared.
Yeah, like Jefferson
whatever,
and Amon-Ra, when they need to play, Amon-Ra it feels like you're playing the Lions. It's 3rd and 6, and Amon-Ra's 8 yards, runs an 8-yard curl, no one's guarding him. But he's great. And you have guys that can make these plays. So Green Bay, their team, I think, is very good, but they don't have the game breaker on offense. So you're kind of relying on all of them to take the step forward. And they need to. And if they do, I think they're the most dangerous of all the NFC North opponents to Detroit. But it's going to be a fun race.